Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, that was a little funny. We tried a couple of new things, so always working out the kinks.
Listen, experimentation is a good thing. I'm with it.
Okay, good. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to just introduce you, and we're going to dig right in. Are you good with that?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, awesome. So my name's Emily Smith, co-creator of Touchstone Central Coast. And my business partner, Diane Adam, and I are so very excited to have everybody with us this Friday to hear what we know will be an impactful conversation with Warren Ritter. Warren is a financial advisor. He is passionate about law and policy and currently serves as the president of the board of the Santa Barbara Young Black Professionals. He's the treasurer for the Endowment for Youth Committee and commissioner for the Human Services Commission of Santa Barbara County. He's a busy guy. Warren has two younger brothers that play a significant part in fueling his drive in life. I loved, Warren, what you said about your responsibility as a big brother and how it's not lost on you. That's just a beautiful thing. In Warren's free time, he enjoys playing basketball. He's an avid reader, which Diane and I can certainly relate to, and spends some time tickling the ivories. So welcome, Warren. We're so thrilled to have you.
It's a pleasure and an honor to be here for sure.
Yeah.
Good. As Emily said, we enjoyed so much meeting you the very first time, and a busy guy is our kind of guy. So thank you for taking the time today on a Friday, which we know is one of your favorite days.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a little bit. But so perhaps to get us started, because I know I barely skimmed the surface in your intro. So maybe you wouldn't mind kicking us off with a little bit more about your background, growing up, and your journey specifically from South Carolina to the Central Coast of California, where we're meeting here today.
Yeah. So I'm Warren Ritter. First and foremost, very, very thankful, very grateful. Definitely a privilege to be here right now. So supremely thankful. I want to take a little second just to say that. So yeah, originally from Orangeburg, South Carolina, very small town. And so in a small town, families are very well known. And so literally from a young age, I have always just strove to find an identity, like who is Warren? You know what I mean? Who am I? And so that journey has taken me through a variety of different things, from going to a private white college, to working in politics in South Carolina, to ultimately getting into finance, which actually got me out here to Santa Barbara. So I was a manager for a national bank. I was doing pretty well in South Carolina, and the option came to be, if you want to move out to California, we'll make that a thing. And I was like 25 years old. Let's do it. Let's just go see. So got my parents' blessing and came out here. And from that position, I met a ton of just interesting people out here in Santa Barbara. I won't name drop, but I really met some really, really nice mentors who really kind of pushed the idea of entrepreneurship and just, creating something and creating the world you want to see and the world you want to be in. And so from that, decided to, take a stab at financial advising, and that led into the nonprofit sector, which has been just such a blessing and allowed me to really push forward some ideas that I had. So kind of in a nutshell, that's me. Yeah.
That's awesome. You're speaking both of Emily and my's language, so we appreciate that. Let's talk a little bit about your position. You're the president of the Santa Barbara Young Black Professionals, and talk a little bit about the number of folks in that group, what you do, why you do it, and then also if you have an idea about resourcing for groups or other people that want to start a Young Black Professionals organization of their own.
Yeah, so Santa Barbara Young Black Professionals was formally started in 2017, but the idea was kind of in effect back in 2015. So there's a young lady in town named Kiana Bordeaux. She had the idea, and there were some others that really came together to kind of push this idea of what do we want to do. So it started out with about 11 to 13 people, and it was just a text message thread that was, hey, we're going to meet up at this place, or hey, we're looking to do this. And then that thing started turning into 20 people, 25 people. And it's like, whoa, like this is beginning to become something a lot larger than what we anticipated. And so, just a couple of chance meetings, chance talks. One of them is a CEO of a local organization here, and he kind of just dropped the idea of if you want to do something, go do it. And honestly, coming from South Carolina, like that notion, that thought really wasn't something that wasn't preached. It wasn't really taught. It's like, no, you have to operate within this box. And so just hearing someone say, go do it, and then allowing you and helping you with the resources to go do this thing, that's really what kind of pushed us to, okay, let's go through the whole 501c3 paperwork and get all this stuff filed. And so now we've grown from those original 13 people to over 270 members. Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful.
So, a lot of word of mouth, a lot of grassroots kind of social media. We do a lot as far as professional development, social enrichment, and community activism. So those are our three main things that we do. And so we do that variety of ways, from partnering with other organizations to putting on our own financial literacy workshops and seminars, and then organizing monthly mixers and other little fun things. We also have a huge Black art show that we do in February during Black History Month. And that's been a huge thing. Literally, we've had over like 300 people at our last one come through, check us out. We have local Black artists show up, and not just art, all mediums. So poetry, photography, life painting, all types of mediums have them come out, show their artwork, and it's been great. And so the follow-up question to anyone that's looking to do something like that, use your resources. I mean, this town, Santa Barbara, literally has the largest per capita of nonprofits anywhere else. So the resources are there. And I think if you have the idea, don't be afraid to explore it. Don't be afraid to share it with someone else, because they might be that catalyst that's like, oh, you know what? I know such and such that does this. Maybe we can bring them in, and you get that kind of ball rolling. So my main thing is, if you have an idea, find a mentor, share it, and, find some resources.
Mm-hmm. Warren, I loved what you said about the advice that you were given. If there's something you want to do, go do it. And I'm kind of going off the rails a little bit, because I'm reflecting on the conversation that when we first met, and I was kind of jumping in a little late, and I referred to myself as Emily Unplugged. It's like I didn't have the normal time to get myself all spiffed up for you. And you gave me some really good advice that was shared with you about from someone very special in your life. I want to say it was Mama Smith.
Yes.
Which I can relate to. Can
Yeah.
you just quote that again?
Yeah. So this young lady, rest in peace, Mother Smith. So she was a lady in our church, and she always gave this advice about showing up and being yourself. And it was an analogy about when you have your hands closed and you're trying to hold on to everything you have. It's nice, it's secure. But the thing about having a closed fist is that nothing else can get in. But when you're opening your hand and you're freely giving, you're also able to freely receive. And so that notion of, why not share? Life is too hard anyway. Why not, use what resources you have available to you? No need to reinvent the wheel. If it's there, make it faster, make it more round, but no need to hold on. Give freely.
Yeah. And that goes beautifully into what we're going to hit on next. When Diane and I plan these conversations, that our intent always is to inform, but also to challenge ourselves, in our thoughts, in our actions, and the way we go about doing things. And I don't know who wrote this, but I read recently that the law of intentionality is, if you want your life to improve, you must improve yourself. Setting your intentions to begin growing deliberately and regularly is the first step to realizing your potential. When we first met you, it was very clear to us that you live your life with intention, and you're very purposeful. And for that reason, when we were talking, we said, okay, we have to call the talk this, because this defines Warren, right? So would you mind kind of expanding on that? Mind sharing what that word intentionality means to you, and if you could tie in also in the context of being a young professional Black man.
Yeah. Honestly, intentionality, for me, that is directly tied to every single person's purpose. Intentionality is being supremely focused on what you're trying to achieve. What is your end goal? And one thing my father always said, and I kind of shared it with some others today, but you know, a dream is always going to be a dream until you wake up. How do you make that thing a goal? How do you make that thing an actionable item? And my father is really big on working backwards. So a part of intentionality is, okay, what steps do I need to take in order to get to where I'm trying to be? How can I make sure I'm hitting point A, point B, point C? How am I getting there? And that's the piece about intentionality that I focus on. It's about, hey, I have an end goal, and in order to get there, I have to do these steps. So let me do these steps. And as far as how it relates to, being here in Santa Barbara and being the president of a nonprofit and helping that grow, being intentional for me, in aspects of the nonprofit was, hey, I didn't really feel when I got here that there was a sense of true community of African Americans. I am from South Carolina, where, I mean, literally you will see African Americans everywhere. It's a part of life. And so when I came here, walking downtown Santa Barbara, down State Street, and I'm like, wow, there's no one really here like me. What I had to think about was like, okay, there's got to be somebody else here. The math shows that there's at least a 1%. So that's about, 10,000 people. There's got to be somebody here that I can find. So intentionality for me was like, okay, how can I create a group? How can I go find these people? And so by literally creating a flame, the moss came. You create this thing, we're here now. I was intentional about that, making this thing known. Hey, we have this group, and now we have people here. So that's intentionality. What do you want? What's your end goal? And then how are you getting there?
Mm.
We all need a little bit more intentionality on any given day, and we really appreciate that description, and it fits in with the conversation that we had that month or so ago. Talking about your relationships with people here on the Central Coast, and you describe looking for people and needing to connect with other Black people, and knowing for certain that there's a group, there's a population that is here, and I got to go get them. And then talking about the racial injustice and all of what's been in the news this year, especially given the pandemic. Talk a little bit about if your personal and professional relationships have changed, and how have they changed in light of all the stress that we've been having as a community and as a nation.
Yeah, I mean, just being totally transparent, especially as a Black professional who has done, corporate world, who has seen the political side of things, who's now doing some, private financial advising. It's like, it's tough. Mm-hmm. It's really tough, because even, and this is going to, sound very interesting, but like, even as a Black man doing the things that I'm doing, it's a privilege. That's not lost on me. It's a privilege to have been in so many circles that I kind of know how that world operates. And so when you have other people who may not have that kind of, education, who may not have that kind of experience, it makes my heart heavy because it's like everyone deserves to be heard. We talk about the social injustices and people talk about the looting and the rioting. For me, that's an expression of trauma. Yeah, I liken it to a child, a child before they can speak, before they know any better, that all they know how to do is cry. All they know how to do is throw things. All they know how to do is flail their arms. That's because they haven't learned. They don't know how to truly express it. They don't know the words. They don't know how to go to the polls yet. They don't know that local governments matter. All they know how to do is fight or flight. Listen, I'm not happy right now, so I'm going to act out. That's kind of how I liken, the things that happened, especially when George Floyd passed or was killed. It was just an uprising of just trauma that has been instilled in African American persons of color for so long. And it was just an expression. Oh my gosh, we have to go do something. I can't hold this in. And so as a professional, like I know I don't condone looting and rioting, but I understand it. As a professional, as I'm looking, okay, my stance is what can I do? So that's how they decided to do what they wanted to do. What can I do? And so it comes back to that intentionality of the individual. What can I do? So I'm in this sector. Okay, so maybe I can help push along a bill that, corrects body cam usage. Maybe I'm the person who there's a local official that I think may be corrupt, and maybe I can vote against that person. Maybe I can write a few letters. Maybe I can get some donors to donate to somebody else. That kind of is how I approach it. It's like as a Black professional in this time period, it's tough. It's a weight on my shoulders because I recognize that people are hurt, and a lot of other people, especially so media, don't really want to talk about that side of it. They don't want to talk about like these people. They don't know how to do the things that others may know how to do. And so that weighs heavy on me, but it's also, I try to focus on what I can do. I understand the issue, but what can I do as a person, as an individual with my privilege?
That's super, Warren. That's super healthy. Thank you for that.
Yeah, it's beautiful to hear you say that, and that's part of why we keep having these conversations because at some point in time, I think all of us, regardless of who we are trying to figure out, what we can do individually and how it works for us, and have some greater impact. And I know you kind of hit on this with the murder of George Floyd and just the whole social justice movement and the energy around that. And that's another thing that we don't want that energy to stop. So we want to keep, doing what we can to keep the conversation going. But we're also wondering too, that for yourself, do you find that the way you're working with people or the way people relate and work with you since all of this has been going on, have you felt a dynamic change in all of that?
I would say yes and no. So focus on the negative, then we'll go to the positive. So the no, I would say, is that some people just don't get it. Some people are just so stuck in their mindsets, so stuck in their way of just lifestyle that they don't want to disturb their little bubble by trying to think outside the bubble. Like they're comfortable, they're content, they're good. And so some of those interactions, even when people try to ask you questions, they come from a place of, I don't really care what you're saying, but because this is the thing I should be doing, I'm going to do it. Mm. And that's a saddening thing. And then I'm the kind of person where I don't really have a problem speaking my mind. And so when you correct that or you speak to that, it becomes like a little rift because now I see where you stand, but you also know where I stand. So that can be a little bit of but for me, it's like, hey, listen, let the chips fall where they may. The positive side is there have been so many people who have been positive, encouraging, and wanting to make this more than just a movement. They want to make sure this is not just a perfunctory kind of show. They want to make sure this is a lasting change. And so, even right now, in Santa Barbara, the yoga community, so Divinity has really stepped up to the plate about making this thing a ongoing conversation, ongoing task about what can we do to change this. So it's a yes, overwhelmingly great number of people who have reached out to me in our conversations, wanting to take a few moments just to like really come from a place of, I know this is really messed up. I'm trying to do better. Please call me out if something I say is wrong because I am willing to learn. And then you do have those who do want to just kind of, for the show, let me ask you this question, or let me invite you to this thing, but no real plan or course of action for long-term change.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
heartbreaking, really, when you think about it, and I'm kind of going off the rails here, as Emily said earlier. I've been in a few conversations with another organization in Santa Barbara, the Healing Justice Group, and one of the young ladies there always in the conversation says something like what you've just said, and I want to name it. I want to say that, and making it very clear. I want to name that that's a problem for me, what you just said, or I want to name that we're working on the same thing, maybe I want to name is a good thing. So there's a lot of folks around and about that are interested and needing, it's kind of, the sadness for me comes from, we need help talking and learning and supporting inclusion prospects and ways of inciting inclusion in our communities and in our relationships. And so do you have any insight from your own experience about inclusion of all types of marginalized people?
Yes, because our fight is everyone's fight. You know what I mean? And while it is specific to what we're going through and have gone through for so long, if we're just being totally transparent, this world that we live in was literally taken from a whole people that were here already. If we're just going to be totally honest, like the people who claimed this country, they were not the original inhabitants. And so even from that standpoint, it's like, if you can't fix the very beginning, everything from that point has been wrong. And so, the fight that we have, even though a lot of us were, our ancestors were taken against their will and brought here, that fight is similar. It's all about fairness, being treated equal. It's about Black, African American, the whole diaspora, whether it's the indigenous people, the LGBTQIA community, women. It just goes so deep. And so I do believe that our fight is an inclusive fight, but I do believe that we are specifically asking for a few things, just because everyone has experienced some kind of injustice, but this is our fight as well. Like, yes, we include everyone, and yes, we're fighting for justice for all, literally, but it's definitely our fight that we're looking to really get some specifics out of it.
Mm-hmm. I have been amazed at so much of my own ignorance, the things that we have grown up hearing and living, and never fully understanding the background, the history. You're obligated to what you get taught in school for so long until we're willing to step outside of those bubbles, right, that you talked about earlier. And that's kind of what we keep doing, is just trying to get people to kind of step outside that bubble. It's like I use my front patio because we're social distancing to have lots of conversations with lots of different people. It's like every Friday evening my husband and I try and have somebody, or we've been seeing people we hadn't seen for 10-15 years, if you can believe it. And it's always a little nerve-wracking because you don't know where people are in all of this, and inevitably I know it will come up. And I've been so fascinated with the conversations and the challenges, and fortunately it's been really positive for the most part. But you know talking about what is mine to do, that's kind of one of the things that's within my comfort zone. I can have a conversation, I can talk, that's something. And I'm in the process of educating myself too, which I know that you talk to us about that, because we're going to get to your Thursday Friday rule, right? Um, so we, obviously, well, I shouldn't say obviously, based on what we're talking about right now, you are definitely a spokesperson, right? Or are you feeling pressure to be a spokesperson for your race, your experiences? And then talk to us about the fatigue that comes as a result of that role, of spokesperson, advocate, teacher, all of that.
Yeah. Well, I'll preface all this by saying no one Black person is the monolith. Like no one person is the gatekeeper or the spokesperson for anyone else. And so that's kind of how I approach how I operate. I'm just one soldier in this fight. Some people just happen to want to listen to me, which is fine, but I don't consider myself to be like the spokesperson or anything. What I do believe about myself is that I'm here for a reason, and I've been put in these positions to do something. And so it would behoove me to actually do it. And so the fatigue happens. It happens a lot. It gets really tough on you when, you're just kind of trying to figure this whole thing out, and everyone's looking at you like you're the leader and you're supposed to be leading the charge. And you're like, I don't even have the war plan together, guys. And we're supposed to be marching out tomorrow. Like, I don't know. So something and I got this from my grandfather, he always talks about, use your resources. And I'm very thankful for my upbringing in South Carolina, because we were a close-knit family. We did a lot of stuff in-house, and that kind of just taught me, it's like, I spoke on it earlier, like, why am I trying to reinvent the wheel? Like, why do I want to grow corn if Johnny down the street has a cornfield? And I can say, okay, well, if I grow the tomatoes, let's do a trade. Okay, you got the corn, I got tomatoes. Now we both have corn and tomatoes. It's kind of like that kind of mentality. So for me, when it comes to fatigue, I try, and with my close circle of people that I'm organizing with and that I'm talking with, and my mentors, I try and share the workload. So, I try to say, hey, what are you working on? What can I help you with? That same attitude is that I get from them. It's like, okay, this is what you're working on. Well, I know such and such. Let's see if we can pull them in and try to get that one off your plate. And so for me, yes, the fatigue sets in, but you also have to have your advisors. You got to have your mentors. You got to have your friends who that you can share those loads with. And so the work doesn't become as heavy. And the other part about it is, when you do it from a place of genuine feeling, when you do it from a place of this is what needs to be done, it feels a little different. So in my everyday life, I consider myself a problem solver. Like when people ask me, what do you do for a living? My title is problem solver. What needs to be done? What can we do? And so by approaching it from that way, what's the need right now? People need to know that there is a problem. People need to realize that there is a true issue of systemic racism in this country. People need to realize that the laws and policy that have been governing this country for forever were literally steeped in prejudice and racism and all the evil isms that you can think of. Like, these were the men who owned slaves, raped slaves, took them against their will, killed them for sport. These are people that wrote these laws, and they're still being pushed. So that kind of educational piece, some people just need to see that. And so that's what I do. It becomes an easy thing, somewhat an easy thing, when you believe in it and when it's your truth.
Mm-hmm. But you do got to take care of yourself, and you have to have boundaries, right? So what do you have in place to practice self-care, refresh, renew, reinvigorate, so that, because in our mind we're thinking, this is going to be this is going to take a long time, and we got to maintain, our witness, our vigor for what's happening.
Yeah. So two points on that. So one thing that I look at, like, yes, it's tiring, but then I think about, that bus boycott that they had in Alabama. Like, yeah, it's tiring, but they walked for a whole year straight. Like, no one used the bus system. And we're talking people like, they were in suits working these different like factory jobs, office jobs, or whatever it was. So we're talking women in heels. We're talking about, okay, I got to drop the children off at the babysitter first. So they got children running around. Let's also think about during this time period, it's still, during that segregation era. So, Black people walking on the streets is already a danger anyway. So it's like, all these things that they were going through. So when I think about fatigue, it's like, they were doing this. Now, on that same token, you need boundaries. You have to set some time for yourself to recharge. And so a couple of ways I do that. So one is I was playing basketball. So that's kind of like my physical kind of, sweat it out. I also play the piano in my spare time. So I get to kind of channel a lot of energy through there. But during the week, I set times where it's like, I'm not doing anything. Like, this is my time. So there's a block that you have to honor within yourself. So on Fridays, on Fridays,
I knew I was going to get it out of you. We had to get it out of you.
So, on Fridays, I try to keep an open schedule where it's like, this is a day for me. This is a day where I am going to just walk up to Hendry's and I'm going to be at the top of the mountain. I'm just going to breathe in some air. This is the day where whatever whimsical things pop in my mind that personal Warren wants to do, this is what you're going to do. Now, sometimes, there's some things where it's like, I can't honor that and it happens, but for the most part, those are what I'm doing. I am setting this time. It's like, I'm not getting into anything else. And then also just writing for me is another outlet. So whether it's poetry, a short, journal entry, those kinds of things that are just time for me to reflect, time for me to get my thoughts together and to check in with myself, because it's hard work. It's a lot of hard work when people are trying to pull you in so many different directions. And sometimes you just have to get grounded. So,
yeah. That's lovely. Emily and I feel grateful to have been the recipient of your flexibility on a time or two. And today being one of those, we super appreciate it. Listening to you, I love the imagery that you draw up, and you talk about your close-knit family and that you learned in your home. And Emily and I both believe in family dinner as a way to teach and learn and understand what's going on. And another type of table, if you will, that Emily and I talk and teach and help people with guidance through is a personal board of directors. And is that something that you have used? You talked earlier about the wonderful mentors and advisors and people. So I'm sensing that you have a personal board of directors, whether it's formal or not. So if you do have one, specific, can you talk about the people that you've gathered around you, the types of people that you've gathered around you and who you can lean on and know you can trust for help and advice?
Yeah. So first of all, everyone should have this, whether formal or informal. It's truly an invaluable resource, and most times it's free. And so, like, that's like key. So for me, I try and surround myself with like-minded individuals.
Mm.
So people that understand what I'm trying to do. And while we may be in totally different industries, they are people with end goal in mind. They are people with purpose in mind. They are people who are driven. And so my personal circle includes, some CEOs of companies, some entrepreneurs who, may be struggling. Um, there are women in my group. There are definitely some older individuals, and then I have some younger individuals. And by having a group that's so mixed and diverse, one, for me as a self-proclaimed problem solver, hearing from them and speaking to them allows me to think outside of my own boxes. So if I'm speaking, let's say one of my women mentors. So if I'm speaking to her, she has a totally different perception and perspective of an issue that me as a Black man, I would have never, well, maybe not never, but it's not top of mind. And so when you approach it from a different perspective, you're like, oh, that's a different way to approach this. I have older mentors who, may be in their 60s and 70s. For me, that's a wealth of knowledge that you can pull from because either they've seen it or been around it, and they can offer a perspective that comes from the wisdom, the experience. That way, I don't have to go through that thing, or maybe even they know someone that can kind of circle me around that door. So I don't have to worry about that 2 month, trying to get through the gatekeeper. Like, okay, you're through. Come on, let's go. And then for younger people that are in my circle of, personal board of directors, I like that fresh perspective. So there are a lot of things that are going on within the high school and college level type stuff, whether it's educational or whether it's something social media. They get that information a lot quicker, even though, I'm not super old, but they get that information a lot quicker than maybe I will. And so having that super fresh perspective of what's going on, coupled with, the older mentor that I have, it makes me, have a more well-rounded view of life. So definitely recommend everyone to have a personal board of directors, if not more so than accountability piece. It's always nice when someone can tell you, that sounds good, but you probably shouldn't say that again. Or, that's a good idea. Maybe you can tweak it this way. Having that accountability piece will save you a world of frustrations, and it'll keep you out of a lot of bad situations. So.
That's
Wow.
lovely.
I don't think we could have said it any better. And you hit on every point. I think you just taught our workshop, so we're done.
Hey, listen, I got you guys.
I had to giggle a couple times because you're talking about older people and the experience and the wisdom, and it's like, well, yeah. And then I think it equally the other end where you have younger people. I mean, I learned so much from those who are quite a bit younger than myself. One of the individuals I have on my own personal board of directors is in her 30s, and then I, of course, I have my kids who are in their 20s, and gosh, the wisdom I gained from them is just impeccable. It's just amazing. So thank you for that. That was really beautiful. So you've said, don't you love it when people come back at you with things that you said?
Ooh, let me grab my notebook really quick. Let me go through.
I love it. So there's nothing wrong with shooting for the stars. And so we want to talk about where your stars are and how, like, in regards to goal setting, those steps that you learned so well from your dad, how you're going to get there. And then maybe you might want to share in that some of your aspirations and thoughts around politics and service.
Yeah. So shooting for the stars, it's one of those things where for me, especially growing up in a place like South Carolina where it's still very much segregated. I mean, there's a black side of town, there's the white side of town. Um, and growing up in that kind of environment where on one hand it's kind of sad, and on the other hand it's like, well, at least I know where you stand, at least I know how you feel. Coming from that place and being still taught while you're in that place to think big. You're more than just this town. You are more than just this place. You're more than just, your skin color. And so that's where that shooting from the stars is. It's like shoot for the stars. If you happen to miss, that super far star that's out there, 30 billion light years away, maybe you hit the star that's 10 billion light years away. You know what I mean? You still like hitting a star somewhere that's way, way farther than where you are now. And so for me, one of my big, big, big stars was, maybe I am the governor, or a senator of a state that I'm in. I've always
California.
I'm just saying, don't rule me out. Uh, but it's definitely one of those things where, as a person who is really big into policy and legislature, and I understand how a lot of these laws and policies and procedures are just so steeped in an injustice and inequality. It's just anyway. Even we think about like the weed thing right now.
Yeah.
There's been a law that's been trying to get passed since the summer that's like, okay, let's start expunging some of these records. These people who have these minor offenses that might have led to something else, let's get this stuff overturned and get these people free. Um, Slated to go back in September to be back reintroduced, never was. But those kinds of things where changes need to happen, but people aren't really concerned. And that's a whole different conversation about why people aren't concerned. But for me, knowing that at that level, the pen and the paper is where the true power is. Pen and the paper, being able to literally impact millions of people's lives with words on paper. I mean, you think about police brutality, for instance. The reason they get away with it because they have the codes on their side that allow them to get off with these immunity things. Like it's written that they can get off because the law's behind them and they have people that support those laws. That's why they keep getting away with stuff. So for me to be at a place of at the table where I can impact that at that level, that will be ultimately like, okay, that's my big star. So to get there, it's meeting great people like you all who can make these conversations, broadcast to a wide audience. It's about, getting in touch with different nonprofit factors that allow me to have and be in rooms with the mayor, with our county council, being on commissions within the county, which kind of gets me thinking, oh, there's another seat. Oh, county council. Oh, what do you mean? There's no like true person that represents me on the county council right now, on the city council, excuse me. So it's like, can Warren be a councilman? Like, is that a thing? Can he represent that 1.2% of Black people here in the county? Who knows? So those are the steps for me. It's like, okay, I've gotten to this point, became a financial advisor. That got me into some rooms with some people who may not be political donors, but they're politically active. So that kind of gets you in those rooms. It's like, okay, that sounds good. Now where we're at. Oh, now we're on a commission with the county. Oh, what door does that open up? So ultimately, just trying to put myself in the rooms so that people know that, oh, he's here. Oh, you're in this room too. Oh my goodness, you're in this room. Being able to build that credibility to get where I ultimately want to be.
That's such a beautiful example of how to go about doing those things. And just thank you so much for doing all of that. So I know I'm going off the rails again. So tell us, what are you watching, reading, listening to right now?
Ooh, okay.
What's on your bedside table?
Listen, so Dr. Candy's How to Be an Anti-Racist is still on my reading list. So I'm taking my time. I'm an avid reader, and I'm pretty quick with them. Like I can kind of blow through them, but this one I'm kind of changing it up because the way the book started kind of threw me off. And so I don't know if anyone has read it yet, but he challenges his own thinking about racism and what it means. And he says something, and I'm just going to give this, and I'll move on to the next one. But he talks about how he himself used to speak racist rhetoric. And so, there's a train of thought that says that, Black people can't be racist because we don't have the wherewithal, the power to, control others. But he talks about how he himself used to speak racist rhetoric, but that was because what he had been instilled is from a white racist culture. So everything that he learned has been a product of that racism, of that inequality. And so, like, literally, that was in like the first two chapters. And I'm just like, I mean, it makes you think about things in like a totally different way. And so that's still on my bedside table. I am listening to, I have a lot of musical taste. There is a young lady named Melody Gardot. Great voice. She's kind of like a jazz opera singer. And so you just put on some Melody Gardot radio and it just takes you to like this other world. And I love it. And as far as watching, personally, I try not to do like TV so much. I try not to do like, I can't binge watch shows either. So that's not really me. So TV watching is not really, or anything watching per se, I'm not really doing, just because I want to kind of keep my thoughts right now. I don't want to be swayed, and the social media and TV advertisements, they can pull you in all kinds of ways.
Yeah.
Just even the debate and seeing like the different props and things that are coming across TV, it's like, no wonder people are confused. Like, you're sitting there, you get a yes to this prop, and then right after you get a no to that prop. It's like, what is this?
Well, it kind of ties in too with some of the things that you shared with us when we talked originally was, the responsibility that we have to inform ourselves, right? And not rely on what is coming into us from a multitude of things. It's like, so I loved, although I don't know that I could prescribe to not watching anything, but because I love movies and things, and I'm any in docu-series and that kind of stuff. But I loved the analogy of that, because you do have to have filters on, and you have to go to multiple sources, and you have to check things out. You have to be a researcher and not believe everything that you hear and are told. And that's a scary thing right now.
Yeah, especially with so much information.
Mhm.
Dr. Kendi's going to be at UCSB Arts and Lectures.
Yeah, I think they already did they already do it? Yeah, I think they did it on earlier this week, and then last night James Joyce was with Jeffrey Stewart. So Jeffrey Stewart is the one who spoke to him, and that was also phenomenal. Jeffrey Stewart, like, even for me as someone who's like involved in this stuff right now, like I had no idea this man, this super learned man, is a professor at UCSB, like right down the street from me. Um, the wisdom that this man was talking about last night was just phenomenal. By the way, just to throw it out there.
They have a whole series of wonderful speakers. We're getting off. Let's just talk.
Okay.
I know.
Warren, you've given us so much food for thought, and aspirations and authenticity and love and shooting for the stars and table talks. It's all fantastic. So Emily and I started our business, Touchstone Central Coast, and the feeling that we had from day one and we carry with us every day is that urge and that desire to be leading with love wherever we go. So can you explain to us or give us a little glimpse of what leading with love means to you?
Leading with love. Wow, this is a one that touches me, and I was thinking about it, and my grandfather is in his 80s,
Mhm.
and he still has marks across his body from brutality that was done to him. You know, and like I said, he's 80. That's not even that far away, and it's like during all the time that we grew up, he never, not once, and I know I just used a double negative, but not once
Never know.
did he have any hate in his body.
Yeah.
Not once did he give a word of hatred towards white people. Not once did he teach us that, you should be, you should hate them for what they did. And to me, that's leading with love. That's about, hey, I'm not faulting someone for their hatred. I'm focused on something a lot bigger than that. I'm focused on securing a place for my family. I'm focused on making this place a better place than how I had to endure it. And so whenever I think about leading with love, I think about him and how even throughout his life, he had a very, very tough life. But his focus was, hey, my grandchildren are going to be better off because I'm going through this now. And that's how I approach it. I might not be able to live the greatest of lives. I might not see it to where, all the injustices are corrected, but I know that the work that I do will make that happen. I know that in my dealings, whether I know I'm going to a conversation, I might be full of some, people with some racist ideologies. I'm going into that room because someone went into a room before me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Someone.
I mean, that's the perfect wrap up to this whole conversation, which we titled Thanks to You. And now it's in our touchstone vocabulary, intentionality. And that's a wonderful, beautiful, heavy, thick, delicious, wonderful word to carry around and to live by alongside leading with love. And we just so appreciate you, your words, yourself, your aspirations, and
We love you, Warren Ritter.
Oh, love you too.
you might
Thank you.
not remember this from our conversation.
I gotta go have a cup of tea and cry a little.
Might not remember from our conversation, but Emily and I did offer, and we just really want you to know from the bottom of our hearts, we're here for you, for young Black professionals. If you need any help, training, education, support, mentorship, whatever it is that we could in a small way offer your group. We love nonprofits, and we love to see them be successful, which clearly you've already been, from 13 people to over 200. You got to fix your website, says 100.
Oh yeah. Okay, we'll fix it up right now.
Yeah, we want the voice. We want to hear you. We want your voice to be heard, and so
Anyway,
anything we can help with that. Yeah, for sure.
We'll do. I really appreciate that. That means a lot. Allyship is important, and I'm really, really thankful to have met you two because I feel the genuine love that comes from you. So I truly am appreciative of the opportunity.
We got it. And speaking, we've been talking all day about connections and resources, and that's how we met each other, was through a connection, through a different kind of resource. That was a young person in my life that connected me to you, to Emily. It's all one big happy family, right?
And that's how it works. That's why that personal board of directors is really important.
Exactly.
Speaking of, thank you so much again. We can't say thanks enough, but it's time for us to start wrapping up and to let folks know that Touchstone is here for you. Touchstone Central Coast, Emily Smith and myself, co-creators. And we have an ongoing list of Touchstone topics. Thank you, Warren, for being here for a topic today. These are things that are not something that Emily and I are experts in. So we invite guests and friends about things that we're curious about that we want to share with the world. So touchstone topics, but we also have other programs, trainings. We even have a book club. Next week, we will be presenting a program specifically on producing your own personal board of directors. And we're going to use some of the words you gave us today, if that's okay.
Warren just gave us everything we needed.
No worries. I got you guys. Nice. No worries.
Before we sign off, there was a question that went up in the Q&A, and it said, how successful have you been with intentionality as it relates to your personal life?
Hit that one.
Oh, it's a great question. I will say somewhat successful. I mean, there are definitely roadblocks. So when it comes to being intentional, just because you think you want to do something doesn't mean that it's going to happen. Just because you put your best foot forward or your best hand forward doesn't mean it's going to happen. But what I have found is that, you know, whatever you believe in, the universe, God, the cosmos, whatever it is, there is something very, very fundamental in faith without works is dead. You know, nothing ever will change if you don't enact a change. So just by putting your hand forward and me being intentional, it creates some kind of ripple effect. So I would say success in the standpoint where I'm not where I used to be, and I'm in a much better place now. And so, you know, from that standpoint, I feel like intentionality in my personal life has been very, very effective.
We're all going to keep that image with us from Mother Smith. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
My goodness, that's just like so clear to all of us. So thank you again. Thank you to our participants and our guests today. And everything we've talked about and more can be found on our website at www.touchtonecc.com. Like and share us and tell everybody that you met Warren today on social media at Touchstone Central Coast, Facebook, and Instagram. And love you, Warren.
Love you guys
too. Thank you so much.
Talk later, hey?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I'm going to add you all to my personal board of directors if you don't mind.
Yes, please. And you to ours.
Awesome.
Yes.
I have some connections for you already.
I love it.
Okay. All right. Adios, amigos.
Have a beautiful weekend.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.